well, there were back in the late '60s when he was coming up as a musician. There were four guys down here, and they called them the Orange County Boys. There was Gamble, who was from Winter Park. There was Will McLean, who was from Chipley, but he had moved to Winter Park after he got out of World War II. There was Paul Champion, who was from down here, and there was Jimmy Ballou, who was from over in Alabama, but he drifted over here. And Paul and Jimmy used to play, and they were all friends. And the weird thing is, all of them died within about 3 years of each other. Jimmy died. Jimmy was a hemophiliac, and he got a bad transfusion of AIDS-tainted blood, and that was it. Paul had a chronic heart condition, and he died a year or so later, and then Will died, and then Gamble died as well. So they were the Orange County Boys, and they were all Gamble's friends, and but they were not at all like each other. Will wasn't like anybody. Will was like from the turpentine woods of West Florida. He's from over about Chipley, and he wrote songs that he had gotten, his grandfather more or less raised him, and his father was sort of an absentee, and he told him all these wild tales about wild Florida, about old cracker cowboys that were outlaws, and about bootleggers and crazy people and dangerous animals, and what the sound of the birds in the night sky meant, and all this stuff. And when he got out of the Army, he went around and he tried to run down all these old legends and write songs about them. And he became sort of Florida's de facto poet laureate songwriter, and a whole sort of a cult of songwriters little by little popped up around him. And so now there's a songwriting, there's a festival in his name, and there are just like hundreds of songs about Florida written by people who were spawned by the imagination of Will McLean. So there you go. And Gamble did some of his songs. And Will was the most restless man that ever lived. He would just show up places. Usually if Gamble was playing, he would just, there he'd be. And his behavior was very unpredictable. And if he'd been drinking a lot, it was unlivable. He liked Mr. Grape. But anyways, so Gamble, his father, if you really want to understand Gamble, a good place to start would be to go to the historic area of Winter Park, and just to the north of it. And if you want to know what a nice genteel area Winter Park is, it has a walking golf course. You know this, I'm sure. But most places, Palatka doesn't have that. Bunnell doesn't have that. Crystal River doesn't have that. But Winter Park does. And there's a house that his dad built, and it's called Casa Feliz, the House of Happiness. And it's a beautiful construction. It's like a brick house, but it's full of surprises. And you go in and you're expecting one thing, and you get this grandeur, but then you look, the floors are beautiful rustic wood, not laminate or any such crap. You look up at the beams or open beams, and they're very agrarian looking. And then right off of the kitchen, you walk out a door, and there's an interior courtyard where you can just sit inside your house, but you're outdoors. And this is the aesthetic that Gamble was born with. His dad, you would start with a foundation, then you would have all these separate ingredients. You'd have things that were very sophisticated, things that were whimsical, things that were folkloric, and then you would go and years after the fact, when I saw the House of Happiness, it made Gamble make sense to me, because his shows were like that. He'd start out with a song that you knew. He would probably move, he might do a song by Will McLean next, then he'd do a butt-breaking instrumental, then he'd tell one of these shaggy dog stories, and it was like one of his father's houses. So he never really actually joined the family business, but the aesthetic of that business, it was every bit the foundation for what he did. So, and the stories, he was a writer. He was a born writer. he could talk. The boy could talk. He could wear out a thesaurus. And anyways, a little more of this. Let me do another song, and then maybe I'll think of something really fabulous to say. Anyways, how y'all doing? Okay? This working for you? All right, good. You can hear it all right. Okay. Want to make sure.